The courtroom in Washington, D.C. buzzed with anticipation as Judge Ana Reyes brought the session to order. Reporters, political aides, and activists filled the room, their whispers creating a tense hum. Judge Reyes, a stern and principled U.S. district judge, had built a reputation for standing firm against allies of the Trump administration. On this day, she was set to deliver a major blow to one of the administration's most prominent figures, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. Reyes had accused Bondi of contempt of court, alleging that her Department of Justice team had deliberately ignored subpoenas in a high-profile voter fraud investigation. The stakes couldn't have been higher, with the media calling it the trial of the decade. But as Reyes prepared to lay out her case, Pam Bondi stood up, her presence commanding attention. Her response was delivered with such legal brilliance that it shocked everyone in the courtroom, leaving even the seasoned reporters momentarily speechless. If you're gripped by this intense showdown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more thrilling updates. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to hear from you. Judge Ana Reyes had spent years on the bench, earning respect for her commitment to judicial integrity. Appointed by President Biden, she had a history of ruling against Trump-era policies, including a notable decision to block a ban on transgender individuals serving in the military. Her progressive leanings were no secret. She had donated over $38,000 to Democratic campaigns since 2008 and had volunteered for Biden's 2020 campaign. But her focus now was on Pam Bondi, the fiery attorney general who had been a Trump loyalist for years. Bondi, a former Florida attorney general, had taken office as the 87th U.S. Attorney General on February 5, 2025, after a contentious 54-46 Senate confirmation vote. She had a reputation for being unyielding, having served on Trump's 2020 impeachment defense team and led the legal arm of the Trump-aligned America First Policy Institute before her nomination. Reyes saw Bondi's defiance as a direct challenge to the judiciary's authority, and she was determined to hold her accountable. The case centered on a series of subpoenas Reyes had issued as part of a voter fraud investigation. The investigation had been launched to examine allegations of irregularities in the 2024 election, a topic that had divided the nation. Reyes believed the Department of Justice, under Bondi's leadership, held critical documents that could shed light on the matter. But the DOJ had failed to produce the documents, prompting Reyes to charge Bondi with contempt of court. If found guilty, Bondi could face jail time, a stunning fall for the nation's top law enforcement officer. The courtroom was packed with observers, including Lydia Harper, a reporter known for her sensationalist coverage. Harper had already begun live tweeting the proceedings, her updates fueling public interest. Hashtags like #JailBondi were trending within minutes, reflecting the polarized views on the case. Clara Evans, Judge Reyes' court clerk, sat nervously at her station. A loyal but overworked employee, Clara had been with Reyes for years, managing the judge's paperwork and schedules. She had prepared the subpoenas for the voter fraud case, ensuring they were sent to the Department of Justice as per standard procedure. Clara prided herself on her attention to detail, but the pressure of the high-stakes case had taken a toll. She had barely slept the night before, double-checking every document to ensure there were no mistakes. Unbeknownst to her, however, a small but critical error had slipped through, a mistake that would soon change the course of the trial. On the other side of the courtroom, Pam Bondi was flanked by her deputy, Michael Torres. Torres, a sharp-witted lawyer in his late 30s, had been with the DOJ for over a decade. He was known for his meticulous research and unwavering loyalty to Bondi, often working late into the night to support her legal strategies. As Reyes began outlining the contempt charge, Torres leaned over to whisper something to Bondi. The Attorney General's expression didn't change, but her eyes gleamed with confidence. Torres had spent the previous 48 hours digging into the case, reviewing every detail of the subpoenas Reyes had issued. What he found was a bombshell. Clara Evans had sent the subpoenas to the wrong division of the DOJ, a procedural error that violated federal notification protocols. Bondi immediately recognized the opportunity. This wasn't just a way to defend herself, it was a chance to turn the tables on Reyes entirely. As Judge Reyes spoke, her voice carried the weight of authority. She detailed how Bondi's refusal to comply with the subpoenas undermined the judicial process, accusing the Attorney General of prioritizing political loyalty over the rule of law. Reyes pointed to specific instances where the DOJ had delayed responses, claiming it was a deliberate attempt to obstruct the voter fraud investigation. The evidence seemed overwhelming, and the audience in the courtroom hung on her every word. Lydia Harper typed furiously on her phone, her tweets painting Bondi as a rogue official who had finally met her match. But Bondi remained unfazed, her posture relaxed as she listened to Reyes' accusations. Michael Torres passed her a note and a faint smile crossed her face. She knew something Reyes didn't, and she was ready to strike. Among the observers in the courtroom was Senator James Colton, a Republican known for his vocal criticism of the federal judiciary. Colton had been a longtime ally of Bondi, having supported her nomination as Attorney General. He saw the trial as more than a legal battle. It was a political opportunity. Colton had been working on a bill to limit judicial power, arguing that judges like Reyes often overstep their authority. As he watched the proceedings, he texted his aides, instructing them to prepare a press release framing Bondi's case as proof of judicial overreach. Colton believed that if Bondi could emerge victorious, it would bolster his efforts to rally support for his legislation. He leaned forward in his seat, eager to see how the Attorney General would respond. When it was Bondi's turn to speak, the room fell silent. She rose to her feet, her presence commanding attention. Rather than addressing the contempt charge directly, she shifted the focus to the subpoenas themselves. Bondi revealed that Clara Evans had sent the documents to the DOJ's Civil Division instead of the Criminal Division, which was handling the voter fraud investigation. This error, Bondi argued, rendered the subpoenas legally invalid. She cited a 1998 federal statute that required proper notification for subpoenas to be enforceable, explaining that the DOJ had no obligation to comply with improperly issued orders. Bondi's argument was precise, her delivery sharp and confident. She then dropped a bombshell. She pointed out that Reyes herself had ruled on a similar case in 2019, upholding the same statute Bondi was now invoking. By using Reyes' own precedent against her, Bondi exposed a critical flaw in the judge's case. The courtroom erupted in murmurs as Bondi's words sank in. Clara Evans felt her stomach drop, her face flushing with embarrassment. She had been so focused on getting the subpoenas out quickly that she hadn't double-checked the recipient division. It was a simple mistake, but one that now threatened to unravel the entire case. Clara glanced at Reyes, expecting a reprimand, but the judge was too focused on Bondi to notice her clerk's distress. Reyes adjusted her glasses, her expression a mix of frustration and surprise. She had expected Bondi to fight back, but not with such a devastatingly effective argument. Lydia Harper's fingers flew across her phone, her latest tweet reading, "Bondi just turned the tables on Reyes, using the judge's own ruling against her." The reporter's updates sent shockwaves through social media, with public opinion shifting rapidly in Bondi's favor. Senator Colton allowed himself a small smile as he watched the scene unfold. Bondi's defense was exactly what he needed to push his agenda. He texted his aides again, instructing them to draft talking points for a Senate speech later that day. Colton planned to argue that judges like Reyes were too quick to wield their power, often at the expense of due process. He saw Bondi's victory as a rallying cry for his cause, a chance to convince his colleagues that the judiciary needed to be reined in. But Colton also knew the battle was far from over. Reyes was a formidable opponent, and he suspected she wouldn't let this defeat go quietly. Judge Reyes took a moment to compose herself before responding. She acknowledged the procedural error but argued that it was a minor technicality, not enough to dismiss the contempt charge. Reyes insisted that Bondi's refusal to comply with the subpoenas was a deliberate act of defiance, regardless of the delivery mistake. She pointed to the DOJ's history of delays in other cases, suggesting a pattern of obstruction under Bondi's leadership. But her argument lacked the force of her earlier statements, and the audience could sense her uncertainty. Bondi seized the opportunity, countering with a detailed breakdown of the law. She explained that the 1998 statute was clear. Without proper notification, the subpoenas were null and void. Bondi also highlighted that the DOJ had responded to the Civil Division, informing them of the error, but Clara Evans had failed to correct it. The responsibility, Bondi argued, lay with Reyes' court, not the DOJ. Clara Evans felt the weight of Bondi's words like a physical blow. She had always prided herself on her competence, but now she was the reason her boss was losing ground. Clara's hands trembled as she shuffled through her papers, hoping to find something, anything, that could salvage the situation. But there was nothing to be done. The mistake was hers, and it was now public knowledge. Clara's mind raced with thoughts of her future. Would Reyes fire her? Would she be blamed for the entire debacle? She glanced at the judge again, but Reyes was focused on Bondi, her expression unreadable. Michael Torres watched the exchange with quiet satisfaction. He had been the one to find the procedural error, spending hours poring over legal documents while his colleagues slept. Torres had always admired Bondi's tenacity, and he felt a surge of pride as he saw her dismantle Reyes's case. He knew the Attorney General had taken a risk by focusing on the technicality rather than addressing the broader contempt charge. But the gamble had paid off. Torres made a mental note to request a day off after the trial. He had earned it. But for now, he remained vigilant, ready to assist Bondi if Reyes mounted a counterattack. Lydia Harper continued to live-tweet the proceedings, her followers growing by the minute. She had a knack for capturing the drama of the moment, and her updates were fueling a firestorm of debate online. Some praised Bondi's legal prowess, calling her a master strategist who had outsmarted a biased judge. Others decried her tactics, accusing her of using technicalities to avoid accountability. Harper didn't take sides. She simply amplified the chaos, knowing it would drive clicks to her news outlet. As Bondi wrapped up her argument, Harper tweeted, "Reyes looks shaken. Bondi's legal brilliance might just save her from jail." The hashtag #BondiWins began trending alongside #JailBondi, reflecting the divided public sentiment. Judge Reyes listened to Bondi's final points, her mind racing. She had underestimated the Attorney General, assuming her defiance was rooted in arrogance rather than strategy. But Bondi's argument was airtight, and Reyes couldn't ignore the law, even if it meant admitting defeat. She took a deep breath, her decision clear. Reyes announced that she was dismissing the contempt charge, citing the procedural error as grounds for nullifying the subpoenas. The courtroom buzzed with reactions, some cheering Bondi's victory, while others murmured in disappointment. Reyes' tone was clipped, but she couldn't hide a hint of respect as she addressed Bondi directly. She acknowledged the Attorney General's thorough understanding of the law, though she made it clear the dismissal was not an endorsement of Bondi's actions. Pam Bondi nodded in response, her expression calm but triumphant. She had known the risk of challenging Reyes head-on, but her preparation had paid off. Bondi glanced at Michael Torres, giving him a subtle nod of gratitude. Torres had been instrumental in her defense, and she made a mental note to recommend him for a promotion. As the courtroom began to empty, Bondi approached Reyes for a brief private conversation. She told the judge to keep her clerks in check, her tone firm but not hostile. Reyes replied that she wouldn't underestimate Bondi again, her words carrying a mix of respect and defiance. The exchange was brief, but it marked a shift in their dynamic, a mutual recognition of each other's strengths, even if their ideological differences remained. Outside the courtroom, Lydia Harper caught up with Senator James Colton for a quick interview. Colton wasted no time in framing Bondi's victory as a win for his cause. He spoke about the need for judicial reform, arguing that judges like Reyes too often abuse their power. Colton hinted at a new bill he was drafting, one that would limit the judiciary's ability to issue subpoenas without oversight. Harper's viewers ate up the soundbite, and her interview clip quickly went viral. Colton knew the trial had given him the momentum he needed, but he also knew Reyes wouldn't stay quiet for long. He would need to move quickly to capitalize on the moment. Clara Evans left the courtroom in a daze, her mind still reeling from the day's events. She felt humiliated, knowing her mistake had cost Reyes the case. As she walked through the courthouse halls, a man approached her, a stranger with a sharp suit and a calculating smile. He introduced himself as a consultant for a political group, though he didn't specify which one. The man told Clara he could help her fix her mistake, offering her a chance to redeem herself. Clara hesitated, her instincts telling her to walk away, but her anger at Bondi and her fear of losing her job clouded her judgment. She agreed to hear him out, unaware that she was stepping into a dangerous game, one that could have consequences far beyond the courtroom. Pam Bondi returned to her office at the Department of Justice, her mind already on the next challenge. She knew Reyes would be watching her closely, and she suspected the judge wasn't done with her yet. Bondi also had bigger plans. She had hinted to her team about a new DOJ investigation into judicial overreach, one that could target judges like Reyes. The Attorney General was determined to protect her position and the administration she served, no matter the cost. As she sat at her desk, reviewing the day's events, Bondi felt a surge of confidence. She had proven her legal brilliance, and she was ready for whatever came next. Judge Ana Reyes, meanwhile, retreated to her chambers, her thoughts a mix of frustration and reflection. She had lost the battle, but she wasn't ready to concede the war. Reyes knew Bondi was a formidable opponent, and she respected the Attorney General's legal mind, even if she disagreed with her politics. The judge made a mental note to review her court's procedures, ensuring no future mistakes could be exploited. Reyes also suspected that the trial was just the beginning of a larger conflict, one that would test the limits of her authority and Bondi's power. As she prepared for the days ahead, Reyes felt a renewed sense of purpose. She would be ready for the next round. The trial had left its mark on Washington, D.C., sparking debates about the balance of power between the judiciary and the executive branch. Lydia Harper's coverage continued to drive the conversation, her viral tweets and interviews shaping public perception. Senator Colton moved forward with his judicial reform bill, using Bondi's victory as a rallying cry. Clara Evans, meanwhile, found herself drawn into a shadowy plot, her decision to meet with the mysterious consultant setting her on a path she couldn't yet understand. And at the center of it all were Pam Bondi and Ana Reyes, two women whose clash had revealed the depth of their legal prowess and the intensity of their rivalry. As the dust settled, one thing was clear. The battle between Bondi and Reyes was far from over. Their next encounter would be even more explosive, with the fate of the nation's legal system hanging in the balance. For now, though, Bondi had emerged victorious, her legal brilliance undeniable. Reyes had learned a hard lesson, but she wasn't one to back down. The stage was set for a showdown that would captivate the country and the world once again.